Welcome to the Traditional Catholic Daily Devotional for Saturday, January 17th, 2026, is the Feast of St. Anthony the Hermit, third class with a color of white. In this episode, the meditation, The Lord of the Family. Today's news from the Church, the United States, bishops ban gender transition procedures, and today's thought from Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. But first, the collect of today's Mass. May the intercession of Blessed Abbot Anthony commend us to thee, O Lord, so that through his merits we may obtain that which we cannot accomplish by our own. St. Anthony the Hermit stands at the threshold of Christian monasticism, a man whose decision to seek God in solitude reshaped the spiritual imagination of the Church. Born around the year 251 in Upper Egypt to a well-off Christian family, Anthony heard the gospel read in church one day with disarming force. The words struck him personally. If thou wilt be perfect, go sell what thou hast, give to the poor, and come follow me. Anthony didn't analyze or delay. He distributed his inheritance, entrusted his sister to a community of consecrated women, and withdrew into the desert to live for God alone. What followed wasn't escape, but battle. Anthony's solitude became a place of intense spiritual struggle. Ancient accounts describe his temptations vividly, not as symbolic metaphors, but as real interior and exterior trials. He wrestled with fear, despair, pride, and distraction, learning through long nights of prayer that holiness is forged through perseverance rather than ease. His wisdom grew slowly. Anthony didn't rely on books or teachers. He learned by listening, fasting, and standing firm when everything in him wanted to flee. Over time, the peace that he gained became unmistakable. Although he sought anonymity, others found him. Men drawn to the radical seriousness of his life began settling near him, asking for guidance. Anthony never founded an order or wrote a rule, yet his influence shaped generations. He taught that prayer must be simple, constant, and rooted in humility. He insisted that manual labor, charity, and discernment were essential safeguards for the soul. When persecution broke out under Emperor Maximinius, Anthony left the desert briefly to support imprisoned Christians, proving that withdrawal from the world didn't mean indifference to suffering. Late in life, Anthony emerged again to defend the faith during the Arian controversy, publicly supporting the divinity of Christ alongside St. Athanasius. His authority didn't come from office or education, but from holiness tested by time. He returned to solitude and died peacefully around the year 356 at more than 100 years of age, instructing his disciples to keep his burial place hidden so that honor would not distract from God. St. Anthony the Hermit reminds us that the desert isn't a place of emptiness, but of encounter, and that silence, faithfully embraced, can shape the Church for centuries. St. Anthony the Hermit, Father of monks, pray for us. Today's meditation, The Lord of the Family. The crisis of today's society is above all a crisis of authority. Teachers mocked, policemen attacked. These are signs that authority is despised. The father is the first authority that the child encounters in life. The man is the head. He is the rudder, the helmsman of the family. He chooses the direction to give the home. He has the grace of state to do so. That is why he doesn't choose that direction with a view to his own tranquility or his personal whims, but with a view to the good of the members of his home. The head of the family looks to the common good of his family. He takes care that each member of his family be in his proper place. As a father, it is his special concern that the children grow not only physically and intellectually, but also morally and spiritually. He needs to fulfill that role first and foremost by his own qualities, by his example, by his virtue. The head looks to the common good. As head, he shouldn't make his decisions all alone. It is he who must make the ultimate call for the major decisions of the household, but before deciding, he should discuss with his wife and take her advice into consideration. And he will always make every decision in view of the common good of the family and not in view of his petty personal comfort. As father, the man communicates life. He transmits, conserves, and develops the life of his children at every level. Certainly, he delegates to his wife a large part of the education of the children, but he remains the one primarily responsible before God. It would therefore be a mistake to say that the role of the man is to earn a living. The role of the woman is to take care of the children. The man needs to take an active part in the care of the children. Thus, the father will avoid both extremes of imposing his viewpoint arbitrarily on the one hand and abdicating before the most whimsical demands of his progeny on the other. He will also be conscious of the limits of his children and not demand of them more than they are able to give. This is taken and adapted from the book From Epiphany to Lent. It's available at Angelus Press, and there's a link in the show notes. Today's news from the Church. The United States. Bishops ban gender transition procedures. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops has formally and explicitly prohibited so-called gender-affirming care in Catholic healthcare institutions. The decision came with the approval of the 7th edition of the Ethical and Religious Directives for the Catholic Healthcare Services, or the ERDS, on November 12th during the Bishops' Plenary Assembly. The vote was decisive, 206 bishops in favor, with 8 abstentions and 7 opposed. The updated directives, developed with input from theologians and medical professionals, provide binding moral guidance for Catholic hospitals and clinics. They incorporate principles from the Vatican Declaration Dignitas Infinita from 2024, which reaffirms sexual difference as an objective reality rooted in creation, not a subjective construct. The new edition also formally includes the 2023 doctrinal guidelines issued by the USCCB, which prohibit chemical or surgical interventions intended to alter or simulate sexual characteristics of the opposite sex. These guidelines could not be included in the previous 2020 edition. Implementation now rests with individual diocesan bishops, who are responsible for enforcing the directives locally. In practice, most Catholic institutions had already refrained from offering gender transition treatments. Commenting on the decision, Bishop James Massa, the chairman of the USCCB Committee on Doctrine, linked the rise of gender ideology to secularization and what he described as a modern belief in self-creation. He contrasted this with the Catholic vision of the human person as a gift, body and soul united. FSSPX.news suggests that this decision marks a rare moment of clarity from the American hierarchy. At a time when many institutions have capitulated to ideological pressure, the bishops have reaffirmed that Catholic healthcare cannot contradict fundamental truths about human nature, while still calling for genuine compassion towards those who suffer from gender dysphoria. To read this full article, please see the link in our show notes. Finally, today's thought from Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. It is a terrible thing to think that one can spend almost one's whole life, sometimes one's whole life, alas for many, in complete illusion, in a way of thinking completely out of touch with reality. People dispose of themselves, of what they are, their intellectual faculties, their will, their body, their goods, everything that they have, as if they were made for themselves, as if they had given themselves existence, as if they were masters of their destiny. It's a total illusion. It is unimaginable to think that millions of men, perhaps billions of men, live like that, without reference to God. This is taken and adapted from The Spiritual Life, published by Angelus Press. There's a link in the show notes. Thank you for listening on this Saturday. Always a pleasure to be here with you as you start your weekend. Hope it's a great one. Until tomorrow, may God bless you.